Hey guys, my name is Anthony, and in today's video I'm going to be taking you around Baku and teaching you how to drive around Baku. So right now we're sitting here in front of the start finish line straight. So first off, I'm going to take you slowly around the track, giving you breakpoints, giving you what gear you should be in if you're using manual gears and stuff like that. Then we'll move on to the lap time that you see in the title right now, and then we'll move on to the setup. This setup was built for racing, not just qualifying. So if you like this video and if you learned from this video, then please consider hitting the like button and sticking around by subscribing to the channel. So let's get straight into it. So at the start finish line straight, obviously you're going to have DRS open, and you're probably going to be going around about 330 kilometers per hour, which is just over 200 miles per hour. So coming into the first corner now, there's two ways to take this. There's the way that you take this, in my opinion, in qualifying, and the way you take this in the race. In the race, you would ideally want to stay on the inside of the track. Just again, you don't really want to be doing necessarily violent turns, because that will increase tire temperatures, and that will just kill off your tires quicker, which obviously you don't want. So I would ideally stay inside the line during the race, but during qualifying, I would actually have the car sitting on the outside, and you may have noticed the black lamp pole sitting right in front of me. That is the braking point for turn 1. I'll probably zoom in if you can't see it, just in case. And yeah, that's pretty much where you brake. So you'll be in 8th gear at this point. You brake in a complete straight line on the outside of the track, mostly in qualifying, and on the inside of the track during the actual race. Shift down into 3rd gear. That's the gear you want to be in when you're turning here. Clip this apex, and then try and get out as wide as possible just to get the best exit. Then coming into turn 2, you want to be around about 6th gear at this point, and then pretty much right here where you see the barrier, I'll reverse a little bit so you can see a bit better. So as you can see, the barrier sort of ends here, and then it goes in and then comes back out. Pretty much where it comes back out, that's where you want to start braking. So just right in front of the 50-meter board, you want to be in 6th gear at this time. Brake in a straight line down into 2nd gear. You want to go into 3rd gear and then 2nd gear at the apex, and then just put the power down as quickly as you can. Open up DRS. We're not going to open up DRS on this occasion because we don't need it, and you don't really want to lose time, because you'll lose time down this entire straight, and this is a pretty long straight. I'm coming into turn 3 now. You want to brake just before the 100-meter board. Obviously, you're going to be in 8th gear at this point. Brake in a complete straight line down to 4th, and then as you're turning in towards the apex, short downshift to 3rd gear, and then just try and get the best exit you can. And then coming up to turn 4 now, pretty much where the second to last fly Emirates thing is right here. You want to brake there. Brake down to 2nd gear from 5th gear, and then you want to clip that curb, get the best exit you can, and then you want to switch back onto the right hand side of the track, and then went a bit too far there, pretty much right here. So right before that tree, so in between the 100-meter board and that tree, you want to start braking. At this point you should roughly be in 6th or 7th gear. You want to start braking a straight line down to 4th, and then down to 3rd. When you're turning in towards the apex here, you want to hug the left hand side, because you want to prioritize this corner in 2nd gear. Try and get the best exit you can because of the straight ahead of you. It's a pretty decent straight as well. And then coming up here, right in between the 100 and the 50-meter board, closer towards the 50-meter board. I don't have an exact braking point here. You just brake in between the two boards and hope for the best, essentially. Brake down from 6th gear down into 2nd, and you can cut this curb, but you don't want to cut it too much, or else you will invalidate your lap or get a time penalty. Try not to hit the barriers. And then coming up to the infamous turn 8 now, you want to brake in between the black box that you see above me and the 50-meter board. You don't want to brake at 100%. You want to brake roughly around about 50, maybe 60%. Brake down from 5th gear into 3rd, I believe, or 2nd. Then cut that curb. You won't invalidate your lap if you cut that curb. And 3rd gear through here, 3rd gear again through here, and then try to get the power down as quickly as you can, because this is a pretty much, it's a straight essentially. It's got some turns, but these turns are flat out, so it is pretty much a straight. And then coming up to this turn here, this is pretty interesting. So the braking point for this corner is the end of that curb that you see on my right hand side. I'll probably zoom in so that you guys can see it a little bit better. Once you've broken there, you will be in 8th gear roughly. You want to break down into 3rd gear for this corner, and there's 2 different ways to take it, once again like the first corner. So in qualifying, you actually want to try and cut the corner and just ride over the corner. Now it is dangerous to do that because you can mess it up, the car can get unsettled and you end up crashing into the barriers, and for that reason I wouldn't recommend doing it in the race unless you're like an esports pro or you're really consistent at doing it. I wouldn't recommend doing it in the race, or else you could end up ending your race unnecessarily. So down into 3rd gear as I said before, and then in qualifying you can actually cut this curb, just ride over it, and it does unsettle the car. However, if you get it right, you will make up some time. So in qualifying, I would suggest trying it. But then for the actual race, since it's not necessarily consistent enough, unless you're an esports pro and you've literally spent thousands of hours on the game, I would just suggest taking the normal line, which is on the road, and then taking a wide exit there, coming into the final braking zone of the track. You want to brake at roughly the 75 meter mark, which is just in between this 50 meter board here and the 100 meter board that you see behind me. Brake down from 6th gear into 3rd gear, clip the curb at the apex, and then try to get the power down as soon as possible, because this is going to be the longest straight of the track. All of these final corners here are completely flat out. You don't need to worry about lifting off for any of them. And then you want to open up DRS as soon as possible, and then for qualifying you want to make up as much time as possible. So I would suggest actually keeping the car on the left hand side of the track, shortest way down to the finish line. Don't be too far left though, or else you will run over the pit line entry, and I do believe on this game you can get an invalidation if you run over the pit lane entry, so you don't want to do that. But you do want to be on the left hand side, and then during the race you're not really going to care. I would suggest just being normally on the right hand side of the track, and then you just speed down to the line, and that is pretty much a lap of Baku. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the lap that I did, that you see in the title, and then we'll talk about the setup and talk about why I chose what I chose, and just give you the general setup for this track. So if you want to use it for yourself, or if you want to use it as a baseline for your own setup, you can. So I'll see you guys at the setup.
Lap was a 1:38.1.
Okay then guys, so here we are now at the setup, looking at the aerodynamics now. We're going to be going with 3.6. Now you can go with 2.6, and that was actually the setup that I had prior to me really trying to get a good lap out of this track. But I felt that because of sector 2 being so tight and it being a street circuit, you really don't want to go outside the track, or else you're going to hit straight into the barriers. I decided to add one extra click in terms of the front wing. You will probably lose a little bit of straight line speed because of that. So if you really don't want to lose a lot of straight line speed, but you do still want that extra aerodynamic sort of benefit, then I would suggest maybe going to 7. But other than that, 3.6 is what I've gone for. And then moving on to transmission now, we're going 50-60. You can up that, you know, 55, maybe 65 is a pretty good option. I just chose 50-60. I think it works pretty well, but it's up to you guys to really dial in the numbers that you want. Moving on to the suspension geometry, I've got -2.8 and -1.3 for the camber, and then for the toe I've got 0.07 and 0.29, going with the sort of high camber, low toe. And then for the suspension, I've gone 2.457. This is essentially just for the responsiveness of the car, really, whilst also being a little bit stiffer, so that we're still quite quick in a straight line, especially on exit as well. You want to be really good on traction on around this track, because there's a lot of straights off the corners on this track. So yeah, that's why I've gone with that. And then 1.3 for the ride height. This is a pretty good ride height. However, because of that turn, that left-hander in quali, you may want to maybe raise the ride height a little bit. It's up to you and what you decide, but I've personally gone with 1.3. And then for the brakes, I've gone for 100% and 53% on the brake bias. A lot of heavy braking zones, so for me, I find that 100% brake pressure is pretty comfortable. However, if it's not comfortable for you and you do find yourself locking up, I would suggest lowering the brake pressure and even maybe lowering the front brake bias as well. So that's what I suggest doing for that. And then for the tires, pretty standard, 23.4 on the front right, 22.6 on the front left, and then for the rear right we've got 21.5, and for the rear left we've got 21.1. Again, you can play around with it and see what works for you, but this is what works for me. So if you want a quick baseline, just use that. So that's pretty much going to be it for this video. If you did enjoy this video and you learned how to now go around Baku without the racing line or without some of the assists, then please consider hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel. I'm going to be posting a lot more of these for each individual track, and then we will even be going into wet weather condition driving as well. So if you're looking forward to that later on down the line, then you're going to want to stick around. Also, if you want to learn how to drive without assists, because these just give you a general track guide, however, learning how to drive without assists is a bit difficult, then I definitely recommend clicking the top right hand side of the screen. There is a video there you can go and watch. That's basically me teaching you how to drive faster without assists. So I'll see you guys in the next video.